Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of You Season 3, Episode 6. We are starting to kind of get into that home stretch of the season where things are about to get really, really crazy and messy and probably terrible for at least a few characters.
Yeah, I mean, this episode is starting to confirm some of my fears that I had way back at the beginning of this season that love is not going to make it out of this season alive. I'm getting more worried now that Joe has found this new love and new connection.
I'm worried that almost everybody out there's in love is not going to make it out of this season alive. I would not be surprised if there are multiple deaths at the end of all of this. It's just
Yeah.
because there are too many people who are starting to know too much information, and I think one of the things I like about this season so much is that it is a small town, well, at least a smaller town than I guess New York or LA, and you can't get lost here. And I think in those first two seasons there was always sort of that veil of this is such a big place. It's easy to sort of be, kind of a very, very tiny fly on the wall, and here you're kind of stuck being a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah, it feels like going into season four that I know we're not at the end yet here, but
Yeah.
going into season four that Joe is going to have to go back to either like being in a place that he can kind of get lost, whether or not this Marianne thing ends up
Yeah.
working or he ends up in some. I'd like to see Joe in a situation where he becomes obsessed with someone who is just not that into him.
Yeah. I think that because that does seem to be a recurring theme. Everybody who Joe likes, they just so happen to always end up liking him back at some point.
Okay, but before we get too far into this video, hit that subscribe button. We're
Yeah.
going to have new you videos up every single morning until the end of the season. And also tonight, we have Survivor. It is the American Horror Story finale tonight, season 10. We're going to have videos up on that. So hit that subscribe button and stick around with us.
All right, so you brought up Marianne. It only feels like this is sort of a natural place for us to go where Joe has his job at the library, and lo and behold, of course, there's a subject of his fascination that is there as well.
Yeah, and this was a good deeper dive for Joe himself, actually trying to figure out what it is, why he's having these issues that he, no matter who he's with, he just can't be happy. What is it? And what does it boil down to that he's figured out? It's good old mother issues.
I I don't think any of us are going to be altogether surprised by this. I think we probably all thought it at some point, but I didn't expect Joe himself to come up with some sort of realization about it at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, we are 3 seasons in, so it is a good time for him to really start to realize that it is a mommy issues. I want to rescue someone. He has this feeling of, I need to protect and rescue women. That's why it seems he was as disappointed as he was that he wasn't having a little girl and he was having a little boy who may not need his protection, someone that he can focus on that needs to be rescued. And now he's got Marianne, who is someone where it feels like they have a lot in common. They both grew up in the system, and that's something that only they understand with each other. And he is learning more about her ex and what happened with her kid, and trying to get her kid back or at least some sort of custody. She is going through a lot. There is a lot of stuff that's very messy. Does she need to be rescued by Joe?
No.
No. But Joe, of course, sees that anytime someone has some issues that he's got to swoop in and help.
And I think we see in this episode another reminder of Joe being at war with himself, because at first, when he finds out about everything going on with Marianne and her ex, there's this part of him that's like, oh no, this is too messy for me. This is not something I should be interested in. And it's like he tries to sort of back himself off a little bit off of sort of the diving board, but then as the episode goes further along, those impulses return, and then the moment that he gets sort of brought back to the library because of an emergency, at that point he is just jumping clean off that diving board into all of the water.
Yeah, and they shared a kiss. Marion felt really weird about it because he's married
Yeah.
and she's not wanting to be part of that. And we see later when he comes in to give his resignation, he says, I'm not going to do this again. I am married. I am, I have a kid. Like, I can't just keep doing this over and over and over again. And he goes to resign. It doesn't go well. He doesn't resign. They're kissing. Things are just, it's complete done now. He is down the hole.
Yeah, there's no turning back at this point. We are going, full early season romance here, and of course, because love is now around, and even we have Joe making that revelation that, oh, this is love's gonna do something as a result of all of this. Like, there's substantial reason here, Marianne. I'm sorry. Love is aware of who Joe is. This could go very, very badly. This could be Natalie all over again.
Yeah, I'm very curious going into the next episode if Joe, because Joe knows who Love is very
Yeah.
intimately and knows that Love is not going to have this, if he's going to just try to find a way to take his kid and her kid and Marianne and disappear. And if that's what he thinks is going to end up happening, because he's not going to leave his son behind. Marianne is not going to leave her daughter behind.
No.
And if he wants to protect Marianne from Love, they need to disappear. Or Love is going to have to be deaded. And that's what I've been worried about.
Well, and what made this episode even more complicated was early on, it looked like they were going in the, was Love pregnant with another baby? And then, of course, what would that end up meaning for Joe, who's trying to, like, move in this clear other direction away from her? And
Theo.
Oh,
that
no.
was so, like, oof. When I saw that pregnancy test come out.
Theo, get out. No, the love stuff in this episode was weird, but interesting and dark, and because we start off and she's at sort of, I guess we can call this a quote unquote retreat or conference, or it feels like this is one of those sort of things that like people who are richer than us go and do, and then they have these fancy conversations with themselves after the fact.
Yeah, okay, so let's just get into this whole 40s in the bathtub with her. So it started out really creep show, like it really was. I'm like, okay, he's not obviously there, but she is picturing that she is naked in a bathtub with her brother. It is just strange. Her brother is saying that Theo reminds him of himself, which we've been saying all season, and it's true, and that he is her soulmate, which is, again, strange, a little creep show. However, as the scene was going on, it really did start to get into this more important part of Love where she is trying to let go and she is trying to move forward. And it's less about the creepiness of them being in the bathtub together, and it is more about what 40 means to her, that it was the two of them against the mom, who is, not that nice to either of them, that it was them against the world, that they understood each other in a way that no one else does. And that's more of what it is. It's not intimate in a romantic way. It is intimate in another way.
And I think it's intimate in a way that Joe can never fully understand. And I think that's why Love, I think at this point, is struggling a lot with this, because she's got these darker edges to her. And yeah, Joe is clearly a guy with some serious dark edges of his own, but 40 knew her the entirety of their lives, and that is a big hole. And I think that's something that she has not really fully dealt with or understood for pretty much the entirety of this season. I think she sort of thought, okay, I go away with Joe, we're in a new town, we have a kid, I'm opening this bakery, this is all gonna help me sort of move forward. But you can't move forward until you actually sort of address the elephant who is still in the room.
Yeah, and it was great to see at the end of all of this, she deletes 40's number. She is done with that. She has realized that it is time to let him go, say goodbye, and bring Joe in as that person that she's kind of like, okay, maybe he won't be the same type of soulmate that 40 was, but that doesn't mean that he can't be my partner, my love, somebody who I do bring into that spot and open myself up a little more to Joe being that person, which of course is happening at a time where Joe is moving away from her.
here is where things get just a little bit messy. Okay, so in the midst of everything that's going on here, Love has a lot to drink, and she's struggling with a lot of stuff. It makes some sense. But in the process of all of this, she calls up Theo, and no, no, no.
No, she calls up Theo, and it doesn't end up going anywhere romantic at that point, but he does show up to tell her that Matthew has gone way off the deep end. He does not believe for a second the setup that Joe and Love put together with Gil and Natalie. He thinks that this is something else that has happened here, and he is really diving into it. He's got like his virtual pin board of everybody in the town, and Love and Joe are on that pin board, and Theo is there to tell her what is going on.
I'm so happy that we actually kind of understand this Matthew character now, because this character's bothered me for a while, because it's like every time we see him, he's sort of like, thank you, gotta go. And he always like bails on scenes really quickly. And now it's sort of easier to paint this picture of just this like tortured dude who's like locking himself in the office. He's sleeping in the office. He's got PIs that are out there that he is someone so obsessed with the idea of finding out the truth that I don't think he's going to be able to settle for anything else.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm getting a bit worried that Matthew is also going to be deaded by the end of this. I mean, there's some people like they're not making it out of this season. I don't see how it's possible, especially with how deeply he's starting to dig into this. And yeah. Joe doesn't seem as worried as he really should be when Love brings this to his attention. And instead, he is so focused on Marienne, which is why it's kind of given me those, maybe they're going to escape together somewhere and just disappear. He just didn't seem that worried about it. Love is saying, hey, maybe I should lean into this little crush that Theo has to try to get more information. Joe's like, go ahead. And that doesn't seem to like worry Love in any kind of way. And it really should be a big red flag.
Yeah, it should be an enormous red flag. And I think at this point in the season, we're just seeing that Joe is someone who has gotten himself out of so many like tight binds already that I think a part of him just thinks, okay, it can end up working itself out. And even if it doesn't, I can find a way to work it out where maybe Love ends up getting arrested for everything that happens. And then that's a perfect sort of excuse. Like, I think he probably thinks in his head, okay, you know what? I've got some options, but most importantly right now, I get to build things with Marienne, the new subject of my obsession, which even though he cannot realize it, if he'd ever got together with her, I think eventually he would start to sort of move forward to the next thing because he just can't ever really be happy.
No, he can absolutely not be happy, even though he has figured out what his issues are, that he has these mommy issues and wants to rescue people. Once Marienne is rescued, it'll be on to the next.
Yeah, the irony here is that Joe needs therapy more than he needs any single character. And ironically, he's been in therapy with multiple different therapists, but never really been for the right, perfect reason now, has it been, Joe?
No.
All right. Well, I think this was a very good episode. I think it's going to set the stage for some really interesting stuff moving forward. But let us know in the comments what you guys thought about You, Season 3, Episode 6. And hit that like button, subscribe for more. Check out our reviews of American Horror Story and Survivor, like Jess mentioned earlier.
Yep.
We'll see you guys here next time.